Once upon a time, in the village of Atuma, there lived a young boy called Agume. Agume lived with his uncle Obonodi. Obonodi was Agume's paternal uncle, and he was the only surviving relative Agume had. Agume had been living with his uncle since he lost his parents at the age of 6. He was 17 years old now, and he loved his uncle very much because he really took good care of him. One day, Uncle Obonodi came back home sad and drunk, which was unusual of him. Agume was sad to see him that way, but he was soon to learn the hard way. Uncle Obonodi sat him down and said he will not be able to take care of him any longer because he had lost all his businesses. It was really terrible for Agume as the facts his uncle stated hit him hard. Uncle, please let's go into farming if that's the case, he suggested. What? Exclaimed Uncle Agume. That's impossible. How do you expect me? Look at me, very handsome, to till the soil under rain and sunshine and then wait for long before we can start eating. But Uncle, Agume protested, if we don't go into farming, what else can we do when you said you don't have any money? There are many things to do to make real money, Agume, my son, Uncle Obonodi replied as usually called him. And they are quite simple, I tell you. Oh, Uncle, that would be great to know. That would be great to hear. So what's it that we can do to earn money? I'm really interested, said Agume. Yes, I will tell you now, he replied, Agume smiling. All the women who are childless in this village, is as a result of their husbands being impotent or something else. Uncle Bonodi said, what we have to do, my son, to make money now is to seek for these women and make them come here, and you will sleep with them and impregnate them to have children for their husbands. The surprised and shocked Agume sat horrified at what his uncle was saying. Uncle, he exclaimed, how can you say that? Are you asking me? His uncle barked at him. You have the audacity to ask me when that's a good way to make a huge sum of money instantly. They will pay us hugely for that. Agume could not believe that such horrible words were coming out of his uncle's mouth. But, uncle, you know I cannot do such. I will never do that, Agume replied, his uncle, stuttering. Such promiscuity is not in my blood, uncle. In anger, Uncle Obonodi threw Agume's things out of his house and told him never to come into his house again, never to come into his life also, if he was not going to adhere to his ways. Agume sat outside for almost 3 days without food and shelter. He almost died of hunger, with no relative and no one to go to. He finally begged his uncle to let him back into the house, promising to obey him. His uncle let him in, satisfied with himself, and that was how the business began. The business of promiscuity. Uncle Obonodi prepared a room in his house. At night, he would hide and bring in women of different ages, seeking for the fruit of the womb. He would tie Agume's eyes with cloth so that he would not recognize the women, and it would all be a secret between him and the women. Agume would sleep with them. Money would exchange hands between the women and his uncle. Agume never saw the money, nor touched it, or went to Uncle Obonodi's pockets. Life continued that way, and each time Agume felt weak, without strength, he would go to the riverside to sit and cry, praying for his late parents to help him out of the situation he was facing. In his uncle's household, Uncle Obonodi became very wealthy through the business, and not caring what his nephew was passing through. One day, when Agume was sitting by the riverside crying, he dozed off and he saw his parents talking in the dream to him. They told him to stop crying, that the type of life and condition he was passing through would change in his favor. He woke up shouting, "Mother, Father," and realized it had all been a dream. But he felt elated that he had caught a glimpse of his loving parents after so many years. Agume went back home with joy and slept well that night. Time flew by, and Agume grew older in age. He was now in his early 20s, and he felt deprived as a human being. Look at the money they were making, but not a dime belonged to him. Apart from the food he ate from his uncle's house, there was nothing he gained from the deal. He barely clothed well, and he looked emaciated due to the almost every night relationship saga with the women behind closed doors. One day, when he went to the stream as usual, he saw his parents in the dream again, and this time they told him to be bold and brave enough to oppose his uncle. When Agume got back home that day, he told his uncle blatantly that he will not involve himself again in such a thing. His uncle had wanted to blindfold him that night, but he took the cloth from him and threw it away. When he turned and saw the young lady standing before him, he was shocked to see that it was one of the village chief's wives. "So this is what you lead me into doing every night?" he asked his uncle, waving at the woman in front of him. "Oh, my lord, it's your kind that has been plaguing my life. It's over for you now because I don't want to have anything to do with your sorts anymore," he said. Uncle Abonodi became very angry and threw Agume out of his house once again, thinking Agume would beg him again, as he had done before, to let him in. But to his uncle's surprise, Agume packed his things and headed for his parents' home, a dilapidated house that had been left to almost crumbling point since they died. Agume cleaned out the place and made up his mind to settle down there no matter what he faced. Few days later, Agume's parents' neighbors came to see him. They asked why he had left his uncle's home and care to live alone. But Agume will not say anything. It was a shameful thing that he could not say. He feigned being tired of living with him and wanted to start farming. When the people heard that, they felt sympathetic towards him and volunteered to help him with the farming. Together, they helped Agume clear a large portion of his parents' land and started farming. 8 years later, Agume was now in his middle 40s, and he had succeeded in making his life comfortable. He had refused to marry after all his past experiences with his uncle and his night treats. One day, calamity befell the village, and it was that the king of the village had fallen sick. It was a horrible situation as the village medicine man was called and he told them what had happened. He said abomination had been committed in the village, in the kingdom. What? And the ancestors were angry. If nothing was done, the king will not survive and terrible things will befall the kingdom. The villagers demanded that the medicine man should do something to bring out the culprits and make them confess, as was in those days, because they refused to come out, those who had done it. So the medicine man did as he was told, and many women in the village came out and started to talk and confess what they had done. They had slept with someone that was not their husband and given birth to illegitimate children that were given to their husbands. Their dowries had been paid earlier, so there was no condition that would make them to go and sleep with another man because their dowries had been paid. It was forbidden in the land. So the wrath of the ancestors were upon them, causing calamity. Bonodi was brought out, and Agume, they were mentioned as being the people responsible. But when Agume explained everything and told them what had happened beyond his powers, they felt sorry. They felt sorry for him. So, upon hearing all that had happened, the children gotten out of the relationship were mentioned and brought out. There were 27 children in all, and it included the village king's first son and only heir to the throne. It was shocking indeed. Since the king had fallen ill, his only son and heir, Ibeku, now 30 years of age, had been ruling the kingdom from birth. His presumed father had taught him everything an heir needed to know about the kingdom and how to rule the kingdom when he was no more. It was a shock, therefore, for the whole community to hear that the ruling heir and interim king of the kingdom was an illegitimate child from an illegitimate affair between the queen and another man in the same kingdom. What a slap in the face. The whole community was in disarray. There was chaos everywhere. And when the king heard it all, he could not survive it at all. He died heartbroken. After all said and done, there was nothing the community could do. The deed had been done. The elders of the community and the village medicine man concluded, after consulting with their ancestors on what to do, and they were directed that since the late king had no heir, surviving one, to rule the kingdom, the representing King Ibeku, who had the knowledge and power to control and rule the kingdom, will continue to rule. But since his father, his legitimate father Agume, now 48 years of age, was still alive and virile, he was to be handed over the mantle of kingship. They will both control and govern the kingdom until Agume's demise, before the real kingship will be totally handed and bestowed upon Ibeku. But before any of that was done, the late king's wife and mother of the heir had to be made to marry Agume legitimately. So it was done and everything was handed over to Agume. A wife that was mother to his son and the kingship. All that was done, and Agume became the king of Ogbe Atuma. His 27 children of both male and female followed him to the palace as they refused to have anything to do with their irresponsible mothers anymore. The mothers were punished heavily as tradition demanded, and they were disgraced and sent out of their husbands' homes. Uncle Bonodi was also punished and fined by the community. At last, he lost all his ill-acquired wealth and resorted to begging. But the kind-hearted Agume, who still remembered how nice his uncle was at the beginning, forgave him and provided for him at his old age. Agume ruled the kingdom until his old age, a blessed king with dignity, and was loved and respected by many. Please like the videos so that YouTube will help to promote my channel and to motivate me to keep on releasing more videos. Don't forget to share and subscribe also. Thanks for watching.